Imagine standing in the burning desert sun 4,600 years ago. The air is heavy, the horizon is endless, and before you lies a mountain of stone, not built by nature, but by human hands. No cranes, no engines, no modern tools, just sweat, willpower, and a dream so massive it would echo through eternity. This was the age when men dared to challenge the impossible, and from the shifting sands of Egypt rose a monument unlike anything the world had ever seen, the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is not just a pile of stones. This is the story of vision and obsession. Pharaoh Khufu, determined to leave behind a legacy that would outlast empires, demanded a tomb that would pierce the sky itself. To his people, he was more than a king. He was a god. And to defy his command was unthinkable. The call went out, and tens of thousands of laborers, craftsmen, and architects answered. Some were forced, others were paid, but all were bound together by one truth. They were about to attempt the impossible. Close your eyes for a moment. Hear the crack of whips, the grunt of men pulling ropes, the crash of stone blocks hitting the desert floor. Picture the sweat dripping from sunburned backs, the chants of overseers echoing across the sands. Every grain of sand underfoot carried the weight of ambition, sacrifice, and survival. This was not just construction. It was life and death, ritual and faith, despair and triumph. What you're about to hear is not just history. It's a journey back in time. A step into the daily struggle of those who carved their names into eternity without even knowing it. From the vision of Pharaoh to the hands of workers, from the mystery of moving stones to the final moment when the golden capstone touched the sky. This is the untold, living story of how the pyramids were born. Are you ready to travel back 4,600 years to witness how humans with nothing but ropes, ramps, and courage built a wonder that even time itself could not destroy? Let's begin. In the ancient world, power was not measured by armies or wealth alone. It was measured by how long a ruler's name could live beyond death. Pharaoh Khufu, the king of Egypt's fourth dynasty, knew this better than anyone. He gazed across the Nile and imagined a tomb unlike any other, a structure so vast that it would declare his godhood for eternity. His dream was not just a building. It was a bridge between earth and the divine. The priests whispered that such ambition would require the strength of an empire. The architects studied the sands, the stars, and the stones. And Khufu gave his command, "Build me a pyramid that reaches toward the heavens." His words were not requests, they were law. To serve Pharaoh was to serve the gods themselves, and disobedience was unthinkable. So the machinery of empire roared to life. Villages along the Nile were emptied of their strongest men. Farmers, artisans, and stonemasons were summoned. Some came willingly, eager for the wages of bread, beer, and shelter. Others came unwillingly, dragged by duty and fear. For them, the pyramid was not a symbol of glory. It was survival, a debt they owed to the crown. The vision was terrifying in its scale. More than 2 million stone blocks, each weighing as much as 15 men, stacked with perfect precision into a monument rising nearly 500 feet high. The pyramid would not just guard Khufu's body, it would guard his soul, ensuring his passage into the afterlife. And in that afterlife, Pharaoh would shine forever among the stars. But visions alone do not move mountains. To make the dream real, the people of Egypt would need to challenge the desert, bend the laws of physics, and defy the limits of human endurance. What began as a command from a throne would become a decades-long struggle of blood, sweat, and genius. And every man, woman, and child in Egypt would feel its weight. The dream had been spoken. The workers were gathered. The desert was waiting. And the first stone was about to be moved. Picture a quarry at dawn. The sky glows red as the first light of the sun strikes the cliffs of limestone and granite. Men rise before the heat of the desert burns the air, their muscles stiff from sleep. Today, as every day, their task is almost unthinkable. Cut, carve, and haul stone blocks heavier than a herd of oxen. Each block is a giant, each one a test of human strength and ingenuity. And yet, thousands upon thousands must be moved if the pyramid is ever to rise. Without steel or iron, the workers used copper chisels and dolerite-pounding stones, hammering day after day until the rock cracked loose. Dust filled their lungs, blisters split their palms, and the roar of stone against stone became the music of survival. But cutting was only the first step. The true miracle lay in moving these behemoths across miles of unforgiving desert. How do you drag a block that weighs as much as 2 elephants? The Egyptians devised methods as ingenious as they were brutal. Wooden sledges creaked under the weight, while gangs of men strained against ropes thick as a man's wrist. Overseers barked orders, whips cracked, and the sand beneath their feet turned into mud when water was poured ahead to reduce friction. Step by agonizing step, the stones slid forward. The journey was relentless. Some stones were brought from quarries nearby. Others, like the hard granite for the inner chambers, came from Aswan, more than 500 miles away. Imagine rafts creaking under massive blocks, floating down the Nile like silent leviathans. At the docks, men unloaded them with raw hands and weary backs, then dragged them once again toward the growing pyramid. Each block was a story of sweat and endurance. Every stone that inched forward was a battle won against nature itself. There were casualties, men crushed, bones broken, lives ended beneath the weight of ambition. Yet the work continued, because the pyramid was more than construction. It was destiny, a sacred task. To stop was to fail Pharaoh, to fail the gods. And so, one by one, the stones moved. Slowly, painfully, miraculously. The desert floor became a highway of struggle, and from this sea of sweat, the pyramid began to rise from the sand. The pyramid was no simple pile of stone. It was a riddle of engineering, a problem so vast that even today, scholars argue about how it was solved. To raise blocks weighing tons higher and higher into the sky, the Egyptians had to invent methods the world had never seen before. And they did. At the heart of their genius lay one simple idea: the ramp. Imagine a colossal slope of mud brick, limestone chippings, and clay, stretching hundreds of feet long, wide enough for teams of men to haul sledges upward. Some ramps spiraled around the pyramid's edges. Others stretched straight from the desert floor to the heavens. Each design demanded endless rebuilding as the pyramid grew taller, but without them, the stones would never have reached their place. The ramps were alive with sound. Dozens of men heaved together in rhythm, chanting to keep their steps steady. Ropes dug into their shoulders as they leaned forward, dragging the sledges inch by inch. Overseers shouted commands, their voices hoarse, their whips ready to sting those who faltered. The air vibrated with the groan of wood, the scrape of stone, and the grunts of effort. The ropes themselves were feats of innovation. Woven from papyrus and palm fibers, some as thick as a wrist, they endured strain that could tear apart lesser cords. Rope makers became as vital as stonemasons. For a snapped rope could mean disaster, a block tumbling backward, crushing men in its path. But the Egyptians were not reckless. They understood balance and counterweight, using levers and wooden rollers to ease the strain. Teams worked in shifts, moving stone like a living machine, synchronized by drumbeats and calls. Day after day, the ramps grew, the stones climbed, and the pyramid's shape began to emerge against the desert sky. And when one ramp was no longer useful, it was dismantled, its material recycled to build another. Nothing was wasted. Every grain of sand, every chipped stone, every rope fiber was pressed into service of the great dream. From a distance, the pyramid rising must have looked like an anthill of men swarming over stone, carrying out a divine plan. To those who witnessed it, it was proof that Pharaoh was not just a man, he was eternal. And the higher the pyramid rose, the closer he drew to the heavens. Beneath the glory of stone and vision, the true story of the pyramid was written not by kings, but by calloused hands and weary hearts. The workers, tens of thousands of them, were the lifeblood of the project. They came from villages along the Nile, farmers who laid down their plows when the river flooded their fields. They came as masons, carpenters, rope makers, brewers, and bakers. Each had a role. Each carried a piece of Pharaoh's dream. Their days began before sunrise. The desert air, cool in the early hours, quickly turned into a furnace as the sun climbed. Under its blaze, men hauled stone, mixed mortar, and hammered copper tools until they bent and broke. Their skin blistered, their backs ached, their lungs filled with dust. Injuries were constant. Crushed limbs, broken bones, exhaustion so deep that some never woke again. And yet the work did not stop. Pharaoh's dream demanded their sweat. But life was not only toil. Workers lived in large camps built near the construction site, almost like cities of their own. Here, bread and beer were rations of survival, fueling the endless labor. Archaeologists have found evidence of ovens, breweries, and even butchered cattle bones. Proof that these men were not slaves starved into submission, but laborers fed to keep their strength. For every block raised, someone baked bread, brewed ale, or sharpened tools. It was a society within a society, bound together by duty. Death was never far away. Those who fell to accidents were buried nearby, their graves simple but dignified. In their own way, they too became part of the pyramid, souls cemented into its legacy. Their sacrifices were the silent foundation beneath the visible stone. Yet there was also pride. To work on the pyramid was to touch immortality. These men believed they were building not just for Pharaoh, but for eternity. And when a layer was completed, celebrations rang out. Beer flowed, songs echoed, and the workers cheered as the desert sky lit up with torches. For a brief moment, their pain turned into triumph. They were not kings. They were not remembered by name. But without their hands, without their will, there would be no wonder, no monument, no story to tell. The pyramid is not just Khufu's, it is theirs. After decades of toil, sweat, and sacrifice, the pyramid neared completion. Its colossal sides rose in perfect alignment, each block carefully placed with astonishing precision. From the desert floor, it no longer looked like a work in progress. It looked eternal, as though it had always belonged to the earth and sky. But one final act remained, the moment that would transform this mountain of stone into a beacon of the divine. The placing of the golden capstone. The capstone, called the pyramidion, was not ordinary stone. It was crafted to gleam, covered in electrum, a mixture of gold and silver, so that when the sun struck its peak, the pyramid would blaze like a star. To the Egyptians, this was no decoration. It was sacred. It symbolized the rays of the sun, god Ra, connecting Pharaoh to the heavens for eternity. The day of its raising must have been an event unlike any other. Workers gathered in silence, priests chanted prayers, incense filled the air. The golden capstone was hauled up the final ramp with reverence, watched by thousands who had given their lives and years to this moment. Each inch upward was a heartbeat of history, a breath held by an empire. Imagine the silence as the block reached the summit. The ropes creaked, muscles strained, overseers barked commands. Then, with a final push, the capstone slid into place. The sun caught it instantly, flooding the desert with a blinding shimmer. For a moment, the pyramid became the sun itself, a mirror of the heavens, a promise of eternity. The crowd erupted. Shouts, chants, drums, and horns filled the air. Men who had bled and broken their bodies wept with joy. For them, this was more than Pharaoh's glory. It was proof of what human hands and human will could achieve. With the capstone set, the ramps were dismantled, the tools put away, the camps slowly emptied. But the pyramid remained, towering above the sands, crowned in gold, aflame, frozen in stone. Pharaoh Khufu's dream had become reality, and in that moment the world had changed. A wonder had been born. And though the golden capstone has long vanished, stripped by time and greed, the memory of that day lives on. The pyramid still stands, a mountain carved by men, crowned by the sun. The desert winds still sweep across the plains of Giza, carrying grains of sand that have seen empires rise and fall. Kingdoms have crumbled, languages have vanished, and rulers once feared as gods have been forgotten. But the Great Pyramid still stands, silent, unyielding, eternal. It is not just a tomb, not just a monument of stone. It is a story carved by human hands, a testament to what people can achieve when vision and determination collide. Pharaoh Khufu may have dreamed it, but it was the backs of workers, the sweat of laborers, and the genius of forgotten engineers that made it real. Together, they defied time. Together, they reached for the heavens. Even now, over 4,600 years later, the pyramid humbles us. We live in an age of machines, skyscrapers, and rockets. Yet this wonder, built without a single piece of modern technology, still challenges us to ask, how? Why? And perhaps the greatest question of all, what will remain of us thousands of years from now? The pyramid's golden capstone may be gone, but its spirit has never dimmed. It is a reminder that history is not just dates and ruins. It is alive, pulsing through the stones, whispering through the sands, waiting for us to listen. Here at Faded History, we bring those whispers back to life. We journey into the forgotten, the strange, and the extraordinary chapters of our past, the moments time tried to erase, but could never destroy. From the deserts of Egypt to the frozen wastelands of the Ice Age, from lost empires to untold human struggles, we tell the stories that shaped us. If this journey moved you, if the sweat of workers, the brilliance of engineers, and the glow of Pharaoh's golden dream left you in awe, then don't let it fade away. Subscribe to Faded History and step with us into the echoes of the past. Because history is not just behind us, it is still here, waiting to be rediscovered. The pyramids were built to last forever, and so are the stories we tell.